rotation in cardiology, and then they happen to go to GIM. And the group dynamics, you know, it's just they feel like, hey, this department, it sort of fits with me. So they're surprised themselves that not only do you have to think of the specialty that you're interested in, you also have to think about the team, the unit itself, and how you yourself mix into the group of professional teams that are working within the unit. So some of the new grads are surprised when they all of a sudden switch from cardiology only and then, oh, GIM. So.
And on that note, you might find a manager that you really get along really well with, and that makes the difference. You're with the NRT or whatever, and you go to ortho, and you're like, hey, Olga's the greatest. I'm going to switch to her unit. Stuff like that. But another area along with the NRT is the Ontario Nurses Workforce Alliance, and for short that's ONWA, O-N-W-A. And that's, is it right after this?
No, it's a couple of at the end.
Just, we're going to talk about it a little bit more in depth, but this is run through the same manager that runs the NRT, and both of those go through HFO funding. We'll talk a little bit more as well about HFO funding afterwards, but you definitely want to make sure that, I think you were going to say about applying to specific jobs instead of just general, but just so you know, these are done through HFO.
Okay, so next we just have a listing for individuals that aren't familiar with specific units that we have at each site. So here is then the Toronto Western, and I believe it's pretty complete, Olga. And then next we have the practice areas for Toronto.
It's a little smaller because there's more to
General.
So a lot of these are something that you've experienced in the NRT. Take out like the operating room and the PACU and stuff like that, but most of these ones you get that experience.
And especially for units that maybe as a new grad you wouldn't have the opportunity, for example, emergency. And we've had some nurses from the NRT go into the family and community medicine department at the Western. So another great opportunity for you to be able to experience some of these areas that maybe as a new grad there may not be that opportunity for you. And then Princess Margaret, yeah.
So these are all the Princess Margaret ones. Princess Margaret does something similar to the NRT. They have their own nursing resource unit, they call it, so the NRU. And you would, except for ambulatory care, the ORs, but most of these are within that. Definitely the bone marrow transplant unit, leukemia lymphoma unit, malignant hematology and oncology unit. Those are definitely some of the areas. PMH Lodge is off-site, so it's got a lot of more experienced nurses over there, so you probably won't see a lot of postings come up for that one, but so they do their own little thing. And PMH does hire a number of new grad nurses. They don't always do it through the HFO funding, but they do hire them.
And then last, as Andrea was mentioning, is what we call ONWA, but it is actually the Ontario Nursing Workforce Alliance. And this just started as of January this year, correct, Alpha? Yeah. So it's a great new initiative where we hire new grads, and as Andrea had mentioned, it is through the NRT. So you are hired permanent full-time, and your orientation is for a 4-month period at UHN. And then the expectation of the position is that you are then to move on to one of our satellite locations in Northern Ontario. So I often do say Northern, not being the Muskokas, talking about the James Bay area. So a great opportunity, and we're very happy to be a part of this. And how many intakes have we had now, Bill? Is it 3 or 4 we're going into?
I think we've had 3 intakes already,
Yeah.
and we are welcoming our 4th in January.
There's a lot of confusion about this. You are a UHN employee. Even though you're not working at the Toronto General, the Toronto Western, Princess Margaret Hospital, you are an employee of UHN. You are getting a pension through the Hospitals of Ontario pension plan. You are getting benefits through are, same thing as the NRT, you're working 37.5 hours a week, you are working 12 hours days, nights in most situations, but you're definitely a UHN employee. You have advantages to apply to other jobs. You know, we are looking for commitment here, but definitely UHN, just because you're doing a placement in Stony Creek or whatever, doesn't mean you're a member or a employee of the Stony Creek General Hospital, whatever you call it.
And Andrea, just to mention, I've had actually, my second nurse is currently in James Bay.
Okay.
So I've had 2 nurses gone
Right.
through this, so they do come back.
Yeah, so it is an opportunity that we do have available for our existing nurses as well. So you're a nurse at UHN, you've been a nurse at UHN, you're on the GIM unit, and you're interested in this experience. So we do have nurses within UHN as well that are making the movement into the James Bay and to take on this comment.
Most of these hospitals are somewhere between 9 and 15 hours away. So if you're not sure where James Bay is, it's north. There's a lot of snow. They probably have some snow already. You know, it's cold in the winter. There's some bugs up there, but you know, if you're open to that kind of experience, you like to ski, you like maybe your front door stay or something like that, and you're open to going back up. It's a good experience. You'll learn a lot through this. But I mean, it's not for everybody. You know that, we accept that, but any questions about Onwa?
I guess not specifically about Onwa, but for RTN.
The NRT?
Sorry, NRT.
Yeah.
Is it orientation for 3 months and then you're placed on another unit for 3 months? How does that orientation work? Is this one seems listed for this 4 months and then you go to the salad. How does the orientation? I can't get into it.
So the orientation is for 3 months.
Yes.
And then from that point then, wherever there is a staff need within a particular unit, you are then placed within that unit. So the orientation process would be for 3 months.
And it could be, in those 3 months, you could be going back and forth between,
No.
or is that a specific?
Usually you pick
Three
three
units.
units.
It's actually, so for the first month, you will be placed on medical units only. The second month, you'd be doing surgical. And then the third month, you're actually partnered with an NRT staff nurse, and you're gonna be following her or his schedule. So you'll get a real feel for what it's like as an NRT nurse during that final third month. And then, of course, also keep in mind that because it is a type of position that requires HFO funding, if there is a need for additional orientation time, then that is a discussion and a dialogue that we encourage our employees to have with the nurse manager and with the educator, because we do have those funds available to extend it if necessary.
So you're definitely not gonna do a month of training on general internal medicine and a month of cardiology and then, hey, my first placement's in transplant, great.
Yeah, that's
You know, nothing
So
like that.
the other thing is, just to answer part of your question, once you have received this initial orientation, if I were to hire you on my unit, for instance, you have to have some kind of orientation to my unit, right? So even though you may have had a month there already, we do not teach you every little thing that goes on our course. So there will be some additional training that you do.
So don't be too scared,
Yeah.
okay, you know, if you've never been or
Yeah,
you've only
exactly.
been there for a month, you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, that was 2 months ago, I
Yeah,
don't know what I'm
exactly.
doing.
And I know that most managers across UHN do have additional.
The Onwa orientation also is considerably different because the type of experience that you're gonna be having there, going up to satellite partnerships, you're gonna be doing your first month in the Emerge at Toronto General, your second month at the Emerge in the Toronto Western. The reason being is even though we are both in the downtown core, completely different patient populations, different kind of workflow, and so that gives you those two experiences along with some surgical medical time and any sort of additional training that would be required for the satellite locations.
This is also an HFO position, so you have to register for HFO, you have to be eligible for HFO in order to do Onwa. But here's a couple of the hospitals that we do. We've expanded now, there's what, six or eight hospitals we're with? But just to give you an idea, I had a friend, my roommate at university was from Manitowoc, and I used to joke with her and act all surprised that the roads were paved and there was stoplights and stuff, but you know, that's the kind of idea you're looking at. about Onwa?
Or about UHN in general, because we're going to be moving on now to
Any programs that we might offer or areas that you're interested in that we may not have touched upon?
Shared
Yeah.
education.
I was just gonna ask if that program was specific.
I think there is one in around,
I'm not sure.
I don't think it's like Timmins General Hospital
yeah,
or anything like that, but it may
I'm
be-
not sure that we have a satellite agreement with anything in Timmins right now, but if you'd like, grab our contact information and we'll make sure that we get you in touch with Annabelle Van Durchin, who's the project manager for it.
Are you from Timmins or?
Oh.
Yeah, but
Anyone?
like there's stuff nearby.
It's not really good.
Yeah, so. Anything else?
I was just wondering what UHN's professional development, course education funding is like.
We, for permanent full-time employees, we provide $1,200?
Yes, after a year of service.
So $1,200 for education courses, stuff like that, that's related to your profession. So if you're in nursing, you can't go and take, I don't know, construction 101 or, yeah, it has to be related to nursing in some way, your master's, that kind of thing. But yeah, if you've been working for a year, if you're permanent full-time, you can get reimbursed for up to $1,200.
And that's through HR, right? We do ask, because you do have the professional designation as RNs, that you do approach other resources as well, such as RNAO. UHN also gives out over $100,000 in nursing scholarships and awards. There are some that are very specific, for, let's say, end of life or palliative care, but there's many of them that are open to any discipline, and so that's an annual occurrence. Those checks are given out in May. We've also recognized the need for ongoing professional development, and particularly when it's not related to a specific degree program. It wouldn't necessarily, those costs wouldn't be covered by our Human Resources Department. So what we've done is started a UHN Amazing Race, and I'll be talking a little bit about that, and the event is June 10th, 2011, write it down. And so those funds are going into our foundation, and then we are going to be opening it up for staff nurses. So if you submit an abstract and you're going to go to a conference, your unit can't pay for it, you can tap into those funds. There's a workshop that you want to take that's specific to the skills that you need on your unit, you can tap into those funds. So yeah, it's something that we're definitely continuing to explore and grow.
How many people are looking to come downtown? Hi. 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 So a fair number of you. That's good. By all means, if you have any questions throughout the rest of this, just pop your hand up, don't worry about it.
Oh. When you are hiring new grads, do you take into consideration grades?
Great.
Are you,
I would say if it is something where you've gotten recognition or accolades, a dean's list, something of that nature, including it on your resume, by all means. Are you bringing in your transcript with a list of references for an interview? Probably not. I would do it that way. Some people do list their grade point average, and if it's something that you're proud of, by all means. But the grades, the transcript component, no, we're not asking for them. If you're volunteering it as a source of pride, good on you, that's great.
And honestly, I think that would be a little bit unfair because you've done your 4 years, and we're going to say if you're not an A student or a B plus or whatever, we're not going to take you. You're doing your nursing training. Once you've done your training, you've passed your exam, you're a nurse.
some people are way more hands-on than others. We appreciate that, but sometimes it's not always in the A pluses where you're gonna excel. Did you graduate? Are you a nurse? Are you registered for college? That's what we care about. Okay, so we're gonna talk a little bit about resume writing. Oh, that's
I have a question. In terms of hiring, is there a period of the year that you have a hiring drive, or is it on a need basis? And where can we find opportunities?
the years have been a little different, so.
I was gonna say, most of it's done